the arrest of 95 Libyans in White River has sparked a broader conversation around security, the security industry and security personnel, be it the work conditions and even the ability to regulate this industry. To talk to us further about this conversation is economics editor Tshepo Mongoai. Tshepo, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. We've been speaking off air that this was actually long overdue. The incident of the arrest of the 95 Libyan nationals has only just fast-tracked this conversation that should have been had around the working conditions in this industry, even just the regulatory body itself. Let's start with the status of this industry now. How is it?
It's huge. It's quite big. Obviously, with the crime rate as high as it is in South Africa, this has given rise to the need for more private security. You could tell with the number of people who more and more are using bodyguards because of incidents of kidnapping. Just to give you the rough figures, we have about 2 million security guards that are registered with the regulatory body, the private security industry regulator. About 500,000 security guards are actually active in the industry. And you compare that to about 140,000 police in South Africa, so it's just almost under half of that. So obviously there are also opportunists who have entered the industry because of the level of power that you have, either as an institution that trains security, you have access to ammunition, and also if you run a security company, you can actually have very heavy and sophisticated caliber of weapons that these people often have. But the worrying part is that there is no proper screen. The barriers to entry in the security industry are very, very low.
All right.
Both for someone who wants to become, to operate as a company, but also for those who want to work as security guards.
Unpack this for us if we look at those barriers.
Well, all you have to do is, there's no screening in terms of background. You have a lot of people who were involved in all sorts of crime that today are actually operating security companies. And some of them are still, to some extent, involved in crime, in the operations that they do. There are arms that disappear in the hands of security personnel. I mean, unlike SAPS, if you lose your weapon, it's registered. But there are instances that we've heard where a security guard will actually sell a firearm to a criminal and claim that they've been robbed and their weapon, taken by force from them. There are instances where security guards have been found to aid criminal activity in a place where they're supposed to protect. But also there has been a lot of abuse at the same time, where obviously the hours are very long. It's 12 hours. Salaries are not very good. There are instances where people work without the guard room, exposed to a lot of danger at times. I mean, you look at this fact that they have to protect the copper cables that are in secluded places where there is no one. They have to protect that vast infrastructure of Transnet, Eskom, and of course PRASA. There's a lot of risk that they are facing, and often some of them don't have adequate tools in terms of radio, but also their own safety. They're just there so that they can call for backup, but that at times it's actually not available when they need that backup. The other issue is it's private investigators. There's also part of it that has surged.
And it's a lucrative business, that of private investigators, because a number of citizens now that might feel failed by the police service would look to private investigators to help them solve certain murders. We know that a number of families that can afford have gone that route, so meaning that has also become a very lucrative industry or business.
Absolutely. Companies big companies, big and small, in fact, they are relying on private investigators because there are certain complex crime that they do not have confidence of the police being able to investigate. In fact, they are the one that crack some of the crime that they're able to investigate and hand over the information, the dockets, to the police.
But
so that
is
they
SERA
can take
able to regulate the space properly? Do they have the capacity now? Because we also hear of foreign nationals being hired by some, where they don't have the proper documentation to actually be hired by some of these companies. So do they have the capacity to regulate the space or even enforce the laws?
The issue of documentation, I mean, you have a lot of fraudulent IDs that some of these companies obviously don't have capacity, or they don't think about checking. So you do have a lot of security guards that are using that have used that to secure their employment, and they're registered with PSERA. So it speaks to the issue of regulation. The way the crime has moved, I don't think the current legislation in place is able to deal with the kind of crime. There's a lot of things that have changed. There's a lot of developments around how crime happens. And unfortunately, the private security industry is on the firing line in most instances. And they just don't have capacity. They don't have the skill. The training needs to be upped in order to respond to that. But there's also needs to be a good vetting of who are the players in the private security industry, what is their background, in order to ensure that that element, because it's one element that should help the country to help fight crime. And if it's not properly regulated, which it's not, because the regulator
leads
is
to us also
overwhelmed.
being exposed.
It's just too much for the regulator, so much more needs to be done.
Tshepo, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. That's economics editor Tshepo Mongoai speaking to us.